The nature of so-called dark matter still eludes modern science. But the aging Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars blockbuster classics may well have been describing what scientists now call dark matter.
It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
Well, we may not be able to travel through time just yet, but thanks to a study by Israeli and American researchers, we do have a much better glimpse of the past.
It's being hailed the biggest astronomical breakthrough since gravitational waves were conclusively detected in 2015. Even if you try really hard, you won't be able to hear them, but scientists in the remote Australian outback have detected signals emitted from the formations of the very first stars. What does it mean for science?
Their home base must feel like Mars, the red dust of the West Australian outback. But a team of scientists has been peering way beyond the planets, beyond our galaxy, out to the very origins of the universe. As Nine's Jane Azzopardi explains, they have picked up signals from the very first stars.
For the first time in history, astronomers and astrophysicists have detected a faint signal from when the universe's first stars were just beginning to burn.
And it was all done with this. A radio antenna not much larger than a tabletop.
The properties of dark matter remain largely a mystery, but a discovery in the Australian outback may hold the key to understanding it. Findings published in the journal Nature describe the detection of radio wave signals from the early universe that trace the formation of the first stars.
Because dark matter was produced in the early history of the universe, and so we're looking for the particles that were produced at the beginning of time. But there's another way to look for them. Recreate the beginning of the universe. Where can you do that? On a very small scale, at the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva. The Large Hadron Collider, this is the Lake Geneva, and this is the airport. It's not a very high resolution picture, I see. But underneath this farmland outside the airport in Geneva, if you ever go there, is a tunnel, 100 meters underground, that's 26 kilometers around, and we accelerate protons at 99.99998% the speed of light in that direction. And in that direction, we collide them together, and over a very small region, we recreate the conditions of the universe, what it looked like when it was about a millionth of a second old.
Well, speaking of new frontiers...
Yes, well, finally tonight, scientists in Switzerland are attempting to disprove everything we think we know about, well, everything.
The Large Hadron Collider today is more powerful than when the Higgs boson was discovered. What are your scientific goals? What do you hope to discover?
For example, we would like to better understand what the so-called dark side of the universe is made of. In fact, what is visible when we look at stars, planets and galaxies only represents 5% of the universe. The other 95% is made up of matter and energy that we don't know. And this is a big question mark for us. And that's why we call it dark matter and energy. These dark forms of matter and energy do not directly interact with our instruments, such as telescopes, for example.
It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
Professor Jeremy Mould from the Swinburne University Centre for Astrophysics and Supercomputing likes the analogy.
Well, in some ways, yes, because it's like an extra gravitational attraction that holds galaxies together.
Look at this. What an astounding look deep into the heavens. This is from the Hubble Space Telescope. NASA's Space Telescope snapped this photo that shows a cluster of galaxies. You're not going to believe this. 5 billion light years from Earth. It shows what the universe looked like, used to look like.
Really?
Astronomers discovered it thanks to a distortion of cosmic microwave background radiation, which acted like a lens.
That is stunning. A stunning.
5 billion light years.
That's a long time. That's a long way off.
This is the universe we see. We see, and this is actually an image from the CC Group, from Roger Windhorst and others from the Hubble Deep Field. And every dot in this image, but this one and that one, I guess, are galaxies, not stars. This is the universe that inspires us and amazes us. There are 100 billion galaxies in this visible universe. But of course, what we've learned is that this is just the tip of a cosmic iceberg. All of that effort we did to determine the future by weighing the universe was irrelevant. What really matters is the dark energy. And since we don't know the nature of the dark energy, maybe that'll disappear. We don't know the future. There's an eternal cosmic mystery. So, less than 100 years ago, it's kind of amazing to think about this, modern cosmology began with Edwin Hubble, who I always like to say inspires me, especially in these dark times, with the fact that it's possible for humans to get better. And we need to think of that right now in these dark times in our country. Edwin Hubble discovered many things, not least the fact that our galaxy isn't the only galaxy in the universe. In 1925, he discovered that. So just think about that, and that's 92 years ago or something. 92 years ago, there are people still alive. My mother, in fact, now that I think about it, was alive when we knew there was one galaxy in the observable universe. Now we know there are 100 billion. So this has been an amazing century in less than a human lifetime when everything about our picture of the universe has changed. But that was 1925. What his big discovery he made in 1929, which set the context of everything we do now, was the realization that the universe is expanding. When he looked out at distant galaxies, he discovered that they were on average moving away from us, and those that were twice as fast were moving twice as far away from us, those that are 3 times as far away, 3 times as fast, etc. Now, whenever I present this, and anyone else has presented it, the natural assumption is, when you look at this, that we are the center of the universe, because it implies that everything's moving away from us, and we are the center. And that, of course, is not true, but it's hard for us to see that because we are myopic. We are where we are. We're stuck in our universe.
Let's look back to the 4th of July 2012 when CERN told the world about the discovery of the Higgs boson, which is critical to understanding the origin of the mass of particles. What are your memories of that day? How did you feel?
Well, clearly it was a very beautiful day professionally, and perhaps the most exciting day of my life.
In quel momento io rappresentavo una comunità di fisici di tutto il mondo.
That day I was representing a community of physicists from all over the world, but also many young people who'd worked with enthusiasm and dedication both to build our machine and then to analyze the data. So I was proud of being able to say, today we have contributed to helping progress our understanding of humanity one small step forward. It was very beautiful and moving.
This accelerator now has more energy and higher luminosity, and so it is probing a larger region of this dark matter space, and so we have this competition between the direct detectors, Large Hadron Colliders, to see who will detect dark matter, discover something fundamental about the nature of the universe, and win prizes and all the rest, or else we're wrong. By being wrong, I don't mean the dark matter isn't there. I mean, maybe it's made of something else that you can't detect here, and you got to go back.
Studying the infinitely small in order to understand the infinitely big. That's the mantra of the researchers at CERN in Geneva, where we are today. In this episode of Global Conversation, we're going to try to understand how far the boundaries of knowledge can go. Our guest is Fabiola Giannotti, Director General of CERN. Can you tell us how this huge machine, which is investigating the mysteries surrounding the matter that makes up our universe, works?
Dunque, il Large Hadron Collider che vedete qui sullo sfondo.
The Large Hadron Collider is the most powerful accelerator ever built by man. It allows us to launch proton beams in opposite directions within a 27-kilometer ring, where they collide in 4 parts, where 4 large detectors are installed.
Dell'anello di 27 km in cui sono stati installati 4 grossi apparati sperimentali. E in queste grandi collisioni noi siamo
And thanks to these collisions, we're able to study the fundamental elements of matter and of the universe, and to better understand the fundamentals in nature and the structure and the evolution of the universe.
The properties of dark matter remain largely a mystery, but a discovery in the Australian outback may hold the key to understanding it. Findings published in the journal Nature describe the detection of radio wave signals from the early universe that trace the formation of the first stars. They've only been detected from the CSIRO's lab in Australia's radio quiet zone in the outback.
Their discovery was not done with a huge complex observatory, but with this, an antenna not much larger than a tabletop.
Professor Mould again.
It's probably the most radio quiet place on the planet. It's very remote.
He says the time and duration of the signals isn't surprising, it's how cold they are.
Well, that's what I'm most excited about. Well, there's one agent which is colder than all the rest of the matter, and that's dark matter, the stuff that makes up a quarter of the universe and that holds our galaxy together.
Could it be that the discovery has found another property of dark matter?
If it weren't for them, galaxies wouldn't form. Because protons and neutrons are too hot in the early universe. They don't collapse together. If dark matter is made of these heavy, cold particles, it starts to collapse due to gravity early on. And you can show that there's not enough time in the history of the universe for galaxies to have formed if the dark matter wasn't made of these cold objects. And actually, as an aside, it's interesting. Many of you may have downloaded Stephen Hawking's thesis when it came online the other day. I looked at it, and I didn't realize this was in his thesis. I don't know, Paul, if you knew this. But one of the first calculations in his thesis was the calculation of the growth of fluctuations in a universe dominated by normal matter, and he showed there was not enough time for galaxies to form. It was an interesting, one of the small calculations. He didn't become famous for that, but it's a calculation there. And so dark matter is, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for dark matter. Dark matter had to collapse so that normal matter would fall in those potential wells, and then the halos of dark matter would be there, and that's what we're looking for today. It turns out we have discovered, as Tanmay alluded, and as I say, we kind of predicted, that there's another source of energy in the universe besides matter, an even darker source of energy than dark matter, empty space. Empty space is not so empty. It's a boiling, bubbling brew of virtual particles that are popping in and out of existence in a timescale so fast that you can't detect them. They're called virtual particles. And when we go out, it turns out, empty space with nothing in it, take away all the particles, all the radiation, empty space weighs something. And we don't know why. We try and do the calculations to tell us how much energy these quantum fluctuations give us. We get the wrong answer by a factor of 10 to the 120. It's the worst prediction in all of physics. It's the biggest mystery in science. So there's a mystery, but that's wonderful. Mysteries are wonderful. The fairest thing we can experience is the mysterious. That's the fundamental emotion that stands at the cradle of true art and true science, as Albert Einstein said. So the mystery of dark energy leads us to the mystery of the universe, and mysteries are fun, and not knowing is fun, and we are living in incredibly exciting times. So I end by just saying, come to the dark side. We have cookies. And by that I mean, thank you. But the really important thing is the universe is expanding. And once we realized the universe is expanding, that meant it had a beginning. And of course, the next question became, how will it end?
I got a letter from a Chinese businessman. I don't agree with this conclusion, but what he said had a reason for its saying. He's a good friend, he's a fine man, and he wrote to me and said, after the Florida shooting, I suppose now, your next university forum, they're going to ask you, where was God in all of this? I think it was Anne Graham Lotz who said it best years ago. I'm quite sure she was the first one to say it. We've kicked him out of the schools. We've kicked him out of politics. We've kicked him out of ethics. We've kicked him out of our homes. We have prohibited his use in any public setting. And then when tragedy strikes, we want to know where he is. Fascinating repercussions, isn't it? But this Chinese businessman gentleman said in his letter, and I'm telling you, I didn't agree with this conclusion. He said, America's finished. He said, there's no future for America. They will no longer be playing that role. You see, truth is primarily the property of propositions, statements. I'm not at all demeaning. I think the camera is a wonderful thing. My wife and I were recently in the Caribbean. I remember standing one night and taking the picture of a sunset in Grenada. It was absolutely splendid. And I thought of what G.K. Chesterton once said, because I think it was Oscar Wilde who said, we don't appreciate sunsets because we don't have to pay for them. And G.K. Chesterton said Oscar Wilde was wrong. You can't pay for sunsets by not living like Oscar Wilde, he said. He said, the beauty is this, you can be in awe of a sunset, but the sun will never return the compliment. The sun will never be in awe of you. Why? Because you and I are made in the image of God. We have the power to reason, the power to think. And unfortunately today, pictures are taking away from us. The picture has a value to support a thought. But if you make the picture the ultimate thought, you will miss the context, and any text devoid of a context will become a pretext. You will use it for all of the wrong reasons. I say to you that the eyes are very critical to viewing reality, but the Bible says if the light within you becomes darkness, how great is the darkness indeed. The eye is the lamp of the body. Make sure that lamp is lit through God's Word. That's how you do it. And so you take the changes that atheism has brought, a willingness to live with it, the confusion of worldviews, and watching through the eye gate without the context of thinking and knowledge. What are the answers? I give you 3 very quick responses. Number 1, the question is this: how do you really reach a generation that listens with its eyes and thinks with its feelings? Okay? How do you reach a generation that listens with its eyes and thinks with its feelings? Here are my 3 responses. Number 1, the gospel is not going to have to be just heard, it is going to have to be seen. People will have to see the gospel. They will have to watch the gospel. So as I close with an illustration. You may be familiar with it. You know, they say old age is when no matter what anybody says, it reminds you of something else. No matter what anyone said, it reminds me of something else. Years ago, 1939, I wasn't around then, but the world was on the brink of that disastrous war. And the more you read of the history of World War I and World War II, you begin to see the chain of events and how incredible it was of how one thing led to another, and one single shot was heard around the world, and the world was changed in such dramatic ways. King George VI had a stuttering problem. The king stuttered when he spoke, but he had to speak to the world. And so he drafted a speech to calm the nerves of the world, himself actually in the early throes of cancer, and knowing he would need those very words himself. But just before he went to speak, his 12-year-old daughter, the present queen, gave him a piece of paper in which she had written these words. Those words are the best remembered portion of the speech. Very few people know it was given by the 12-year-old daughter. It said this: I said to the man at the gate of the year, give me a light that I may walk safely into the unknown. He said to me, go out into the darkness and put your hand into the hand of God. It shall be to you better than the light and safer than the known. I said to the man at the gate of the year, give me a light that I may walk safely into the unknown. He said to me, go out into the darkness and put your hand into the hand of God. It shall be to you better than the light and safer than the known.